I'm not going to go over a whole lot of last week, but obviously get a win on the road to open up conference play is really big, and I think we'll kind of leave it at that. It's behind us. I know there's a lot of positives, but there's a lot of things that we can learn from for us to get better. Playing on the road is different, and so it kind of starts there, and then we'll continue to move forward. But excited more so about getting back into this week. Back at home obviously is great for us. Homecoming weekend, exciting, just to a little bit more energy, excitement back on campus, and back where we feel most comfortable, playing. So great atmosphere is what we expect. I expect a team that's come back in here, fighting, scratching, and clawing, and that's what we would expect. They've got a lot of talent, a lot of speed. I think on both sides of the football, return game is really, really special at times. And so we've got to be really prepared.
When you went back over the tape,
I just said we were going to move on.
I know, but I don't have to. You can. When you went back over the tape, was the performance at the line of scrimmage by the defense as dominant as it looked live?
We gave up a lot of yards rushing the year before. Our whole emphasis was not to dominate the line of scrimmage; it was to control the line of scrimmage, and it's a little bit different. So we played a little bit different, I thought, and really did a good job. Those guys really, kind of honed into what it is we asked them to do. So at times can be a little different, and I think that's where some of your adjustments that people don't probably know and recognize. But those guys up front in particular did a really good job. I know people want to talk about sacks and things like that, but it all comes down to our ability to control line of scrimmage, stop the run game, put ourselves in a lot better situation than we were in the last 2 years, to be honest with you.
See, that was all right.
Whether it was Saturday or previous games, the ability to create pressure, just rushing 4, sometimes 3, what does that do to take stress off the back end of defense?
It does a lot. I mean, I think in general, you've got to find ways to apply pressure. I think we're doing a good job at that. I think there's some things we got to do better, but I think in all, whether it's 3-man, 4-man, 5-man, times there's 6 men coming, we've got the ability, maybe even more so this year, to mix it up a little bit, to not be as predictable. I think at least with our pressures and things like that, those guys have done a good job. And there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made in games. Like last week in particular, preparing maybe for a different quarterback, and then game time it kind of goes back and the original starters in there that just to shift the mentality of those things. So give a lot of credit to those guys up front, maturity-wise, understanding what it is we need to do in each game to be successful, and they've done a really good job with that.
When you talk about just be us, do you feel like defensively you're getting pretty close to figuring out what that is?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we know what it is that we want, but I think that we'll kind of hone in a little bit better on it. And each and every week, you got to grow. And this isn't a team that, like we said, in the last 2 years, have had a lot of guys in the same positions that, you felt a little bit better about the things that you were going to do and adjust wise each and every week. And so I think this, as we develop what us is, it's also how much can we grow as who we are throughout the entire season. I think that has a lot to do with it. It's not just the things that you play, it's also week in, week out, the things that you can adjust and adapt to.
Moving on, South Florida's a bit of a weird team. They pass the ball a bit, but they struggle to get a passing touchdown for the first 4 games. What do you see from them offensively?
Well, I do think they're a little bit, back and forth. I think that, I think they know they've got talent. I think they know they've got speed at the wide receiver position. They know they got to get the balls into those guys' hands. So I think maybe early on they were trying to force things a little bit differently. Quarterback is not new. Obviously, he's a starter. Last year, Baylor played 12 games or 13 games, led him to the championship. But he didn't come till the fall. So I think that all in all, they probably had a good idea the first 4 or 5 games were going to be, a bit of development for what is they're going to be. And so maybe they're not where they want to be, but I do believe that they've got the pieces, they've got the talent. I think they're a little bit back and forth with the guys running the football and throwing the football. But I know as a coach, you sit there and look at it, okay, maybe they haven't won, but I think they had 400 and some yards of total offense last week, throwing the ball, running the ball. It's a group that, like I said, anytime a guy's back's against the wall, you're going to get their best.
You mentioned controlling the line of scrimmage. statistically, you guys lead the country, TFLs, sacks. What is it that is so elite this season about pressuring the back?
I think our ability a little bit this year of mixing some things up. We're not maybe as static. Yes, we play some similar coverage things, but I think our ability to mix it up a little bit, giving guys two-way goes, to allow them to apply pressure. Obviously, you can't deny the fact that Ivan Pace is a really good guy inside there that creates some havoc, and the more havoc he creates, he also creates a lot more one-on-ones for the guys on edges and even the nose guard. So I think where we are right now is, we're still growing, but I think that those guys are able to play off of each other. We're able to create, not saying mismatches, but when you're trying to create some confusion, not just for the quarterback, for the guys up front, it gives you a little bit better chance maybe to make some of those havoc plays. And I think the combination of having those guys up front that understand it, the combination of being able to, have a guy like Ivan that's a little bit more of a dynamic plugger than maybe we've had in the last couple of years. He's created a little bit more, not knowing or hesitation maybe sometimes in the guys up front, which has allowed our guys to kind of take advantage of. We got to continue to do that, but as you move along, people obviously do a good job at scouting. You have better, game plans for what you're doing. So we've got to continue to grow as well. But I think that combination has allowed us to obviously create some of those plays.
Felt like we've been waiting for Deshaun to kind of make a splash play than we did last year. He had a couple Saturday. What was it that maybe took him a while to get going, or the game plan against him?
No, I do think that you've got to make the plays that come your way, and as we saw with maybe a guy like I'm not putting him in that, but Majay last year in the first 5, 6, 7 games, I mean everything he was trying to do was almost like I want to go do this, and he really didn't put himself in the best position, wasn't making a lot of plays. People obviously did some things different. And I think maybe even early on, that's where DP was a little bit like, I got to go make these plays. I had this many interceptions, and sometimes you start pressing and not doing the things that you need to do, and make the plays that come your way because you're trying to do some other things. So all those things, I think he's still a younger guy, and being a second-year guy, I didn't think anything of it in the first 4 games. Maybe his stats weren't like they were the year before, but I know that it does put a little pressure on them, and you can see them press. But I think he, more comfortable in where he's at. Obviously, as we kind of develop who we are, I mean, when they're having create a lot of tackles for losses and some of those situations, things aren't getting to the second level. When things aren't getting to the second level, sometimes those second level guys don't have as many opportunities to make plays. So you got to look at it as a whole, and I think that's where I think we're getting better at that, at recognizing, understanding. It may be a little bit different, and you just got to focus in on make the plays that come your way.
Finally caught one in the end zone too. Did you get
Yeah,
credit?
he finally. I thought he was going to come down there short about the 1 yard line, but like I said, maybe he's grown a little bit too and figured out where that end line is.
Jason and Keith.
Coach, we talk about continuing to grow. I imagine it's not easy to be the team that replaces the team. But is this team really starting to believe, like, hey, we're a pretty doggone good football team too, and do you feel like they're carving their own identity?
Yeah, I do. I don't think that if you sat in these, if you stood up here and you had a team meeting, you would see that there's a group of guys that lack any confidence. And from the time we started, fall camp, maybe coaches know the areas that we need to grow and some of the deficiencies that you think that you're going to have to develop throughout the entire season. But it's a group that I don't think they see that. They don't think that. So it's a very confident group. In some ways, that's where we had to kind of humble ourselves after some situations. But I do believe they're growing into their own, recognizing who they are and how we have to do things maybe a little bit different from what we've done maybe even the last 2 years. And that kind of comes back to some of that DP and second level guys. Maybe there's not as many opportunities because some of those first level guys are creating some different things. So it's all got to work together. It's all got to continue to grow. But I think we're in a good place, both offensively and defensively and special teams as well.
You talk often about the explosive plays. Those have been coming a lot through the air with Tyler, but you got 2 big ones in the run game this following week. Are you liking where that progression is going with the run game?
It's always about balance. I say every week. Yes, obviously you want those big plays. Big plays don't happen because, a guy makes 4 or 5 guys miss reality. Big plays, especially in the run game, happen when you get the guy to the second level. And get the guy to the second level means you've done a good job up front. You've controlled the line of scrimmage. Now it all comes down to the extra efforts of those wide receivers and those Jim Kellys of the world downfield blocking like he did in his time here, to create those 10-yard runs into those 45, 50-yard runs. Hopefully touchdowns if we don't get caught, but that's beside the point. But I think that's where we're continuing to grow. I think those guys on the outside have done a really good job, not just catching the ball, but blocking downfield. But for a couple weeks, we didn't do as good a job at the line of scrimmage to get those guys into that second level where they have a chance, not just to make one guy miss, but also to use the people that are out there as well. So I don't want us to think it's all about home run shots. It's about the ability to wear people down. It's about the ability to get those guys to the second level and allow the extra efforts of the world to create some of the things that we do.
Joe, then Chad.
Luke, I'm not sure if you're aware, if you win this weekend, you tie Rick Mentor for most wins in program history. Or are you shaking your head? Is that meaningful?
Well, because he yelled at him a couple weeks ago, and they said something about a 50th win. I said, well, I think Zach would have told me that, but he says he did, but I don't listen to him half the time anyway. So he came in today and said something about that, and I about strangled him at that time too. So it has no bearing on what it is that we do. Not something I think a whole lot about, and I sure as heck don't think that the kids that sit in these seats think a whole lot about that. It's another opportunity for us to continue to move forward.
A follow-up, if I may, on that. Your profession is one that constant change. The guys move around all the time. For you to be here 6 years, the consistency you brought to the program, how meaningful do you think that is to what you do in your life?
I think it's the only way to create, sustained success. I do. I mean, just because when you don't have some continuity, and I know coaches are going to change, but some stability and continuity, it's really hard for young guys to grow. And I know this world today is, transfer portal, and everyone's talking about those things, and that's not who we are. That's not how we grow the program. But there's got to be some stability in what's going on to give 18 to 22-year-olds a chance to grow, and that's where I think we've done a really good job, not because of me, but I think because we've been able to keep the key pieces in place here, from our strength program to what we've done offensively to what we've done defensively. We haven't really changed. We've grown, but we haven't changed, and that stability has given our kids a much greater opportunity to grow, to play above, the talent levels at which they have, and to play together, to be quite honest. And to me, I think that as we continue to see how this college football era, the next 10 years goes, I think you're going to see the ones that have more stability are going to be the ones that, in the long run, are going to be those programs that year in, year out are going to be really good.
On that note, what goes through your mind when you see 5 coaches fired through the first 5 weeks of the season?
Bad. I think it's really a bad place that we are, and we're headed in this profession. Look, I have no say over it, but I think it's a little sad, to be honest with you, to see a guy like Paul Christ, who has been in his place as long as he has and done what he's done, be out after 5 or so games, and same thing at Nebraska. I mean, just your alma mater. Look, I don't know what's going on there, but I just think it's a bad trend, for our kids, not for us. We're professionals. I mean, we understand that, you're evaluated on wins and losses, but I think the example that we're setting for our young guys about, hey, if it's not right, just change it, get rid of it in the middle of what you're doing. No wonder we have more and more transfers, and it's a bigger deal. And in our world, they're doing it with coaches too.
On that note, there was also a report yesterday that there's a team in conference that some of their players have decided after 4 games they're gonna redshirt the rest of the year. And
well, I don't know that
transfer.
you can't go in the transfer portal.
But that's what they're doing is they're at their 4-game limit.
Redshirting.
So they're redshirting and then going into the portal. Like, that's the new thing that came up with the transfer.
You always got to be aware of what's going on, and to me, there's things that we're going to continue to do better. I mean, if you don't notice, we took 82 or 83 guys to the game this past week, and a lot of conferences have limitations to the amount of guys you can take on the road. I think that's ridiculous. Being that, what are you going to do? Leaving more guys at home to wonder what's going on and do whatever on the weekend. So we try to take as many kids as we can to make them a part of what it is that we're doing, especially the guys that are injured. It wasn't their fault that they got hurt and are out for the season. I think all those things are things we got to continue to, the stability of creating an environment where, the easiest thing is not just to take off, but there's some other commitment levels. But every program is different. Obviously they tried to eliminate that by saying, hey, there's no transfer portal until after the season. But there's always going to be people finding ways to do what's best for them individually. And I don't blame them. I just think that it's tougher on programs. That's why it's really critical to, take care of what you got in your own place and don't worry about all the others.
Living under a rock.
This rock, not just a rock. There's 125 of these 18 or 22-year-olds. It's not a little rock.
Any other questions for Coach? Justin, do you have one?
Oh, one more.
Sorry. Second straight week, offenses seem to stall a little bit in the second half. Is there one explanation? Is there anything you found kind of looking back at both games?
No, I don't. I guess I didn't quite. I mean, obviously the week before it was the situation that it was. This past week, no. I think, the type of game it was, both sides of the ball. You get into the fourth quarter, it's a little bit of management. I thought, the most impressive thing is the first down coming off the goal line there, with 4 or 5 minutes to go in the game. So wasn't quite as, looking at statistics of the second half with that. But we know we've got to stay aggressive. We know we've got to, not, just kind of get into that rut, that groove, but continue to move forward with what it is we're doing, both sides of the ball, but especially in the second half. So nothing that jumps out at you. You give them some credit for maybe making some adjustments and making some plays. I just think that we got to keep the momentum when we have it.
We've talked about Ben's strengths and maybe a different offensive strength. In the past, you guys have grinded out games at the end because you grind them out at the beginning. Is part of it kind of adjusting to maybe a new?
It may be. I mean, there's no doubt that developing who us is and looks like is an ongoing thing, and we can say what we want to be, but the reality is, you're going to do what you're good at, and I think that's where we're still, trying to figure out exactly, both offensively and defensively, what are we really good at? What are we going to hang our hat on? And when it comes down to it, what's going to win us, games and give us a chance to play for a championship? And that's where I would say we're still in a development, stage of what we're doing. And it's not because, what do you mean? You had 24 practices and had 5 games. I know, but there's still a lot of things that we're developing.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks.